Greetings everyone, this is Dennis at Boulder Sounds. Welcome to the video demo of the mandolin library for Native Instruments Kontakt. So what you're looking at now is the main front panel of the instrument. And we have two tabs down here. We have Instrument and Effects. And on each of these tabs we have a drop-down menu on the right-hand bottom corner of the page where we have other sub-pages for each of these tabs. Just to give you a quick overview of the various columns on this page, and then I'll talk about them in more detail. Position and imposed string. This is control over the fret position of each string. And direction has to do with down and up strokes, which were both sampled for this instrument. Below that we have tremolo. That can be controlled with the speed knob. And then we have some string muting. And then we have different articulations to simulate slurs. Two sets of articulations can be set into motion. We also have half-step slides. You can control the speed with the speed knob. And then in the right-hand corner, right-hand column, are effects that are quickly accessible to you from the main page. You can edit them in more detail on the effects page. So this picture was made to help visualize positions on the mandolin. If you're a guitar player, you'll be comfortable with this, but it may not be that obvious to keyboard players. So this first diagram here on the left is what we call zero position, because it uses the open string, which is up here where my mouse is, and then it uses the next 6 half steps for a total of 7 half steps, which covers a perfect fifth, which is the way the mandolin is tuned from string to string. And the fourth string, by the way, is off to the left. This is the third, second, and first string, so from low to high. So as you play in these different positions, you're going to get a different tonal quality going up the neck. Starting from here in first position, you're going to get a brighter sound. As you move down towards these other positions, all the way up to the fifth position, you're going to get a slightly warmer quality. The lower strings won't ring quite as long, but the point is you get a very different sound, and you have total control over that using key switches. And some of these positions will actually automatically change as you move up the scale. You can override those changes using key switches, or you can use the string impose button, which I'll explain to you in just a moment. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the position column. You notice here in the gold keys off to the right, we have 7 key switches, and they correspond to the 7 positions that you can play on the mandolin. And here it tells you the fret equals 0, meaning we're in 0 position. As I go up and trigger these key switches, you can see it changes. Fret goes to first position, second position, third position, and so on. So if I start on first position, you'll notice the sound is quite a bit bright and open. Contrast that with, for example, all the way up on sixth position. Quite a bit darker sound, nice and warm. So each position is going to give you a slightly different tonal quality. Here's fourth position. And you noticed when I went to the lowest note, it automatically shifted me back to 0 position, back to the open bright sound. Now you can override that, of course, using key switches to control that, but also you can use the impose string, which is right below this. So what happens here is I trigger one of these key switches. Let's say I choose the second string, and what happens is when I get to the second string, it's going to continue playing up the second string until the full length of the second string that was sampled is used. So watch the string number up here as I do this. So string number says string 4, string 3. Now here's the first sample off the second string, and it's going to go an octave up. So the second string open is A. It'll go all the way up to the next A on the second string. And now I'm going to move on to the first string. And you also may be wondering how detailed is the sampling. are there round robins, multiple velocities, etc.? Yes, there are. There's 3 velocity levels. We'll call it medium, loud, and louder, if you like. It's all relative, I suppose. Within each of those 3 multiple velocities levels, we have 3 round robins of downstrokes and 2 round robins of upstrokes. So when you combine all those together in a long repeating round robin fashion, you don't repeat the round robin until you've done 12 total strokes. So you're not going to hear much repetition that's recognizable as you play scales or even tremolo with this, which I'll demonstrate just a little bit later. And also the mandolin was chromatically sampled every half step, all the way up to the octave of each string, and on the first string we go even beyond that. Okay, let's move on to the next column. It says direction. We have a reset button. I'll get to that in a moment. But notice what happens when it says direction in this little box here. I play a note, and what used to say down, what used to says up, now says down. So what it's going to show you is the next kind of stroke that will be triggered. So if I just do a repetitive note, you see it changes from down, up, down, up, down, up. So that's a real common sound, especially in bluegrass mandolin playing. When you're playing in eighth notes, depending on the tempo of the song, of course, you're going to alternate down and up strokes. So you kind of get this real, sort of a real good breathing quality to it. So the script is, the KSP script that Bo has created alternates these down and up strokes automatically for you. So what if you don't want that? What if you just want down strokes? Well, you see this button where it says down, you click on it, it says down locked. That's nothing but downstrokes. Same story with upstrokes. You can lock the upstrokes, you hear nothing but upstrokes. It's a little thinner and brighter sounding. Not sure if any mandolin player would really do that, but it's there for you to experiment with if you'd like to do that. And then, of course, if you're working on a sequence and you're playing it back, and for some reason it's starting on an upstroke when you want it to start on a downstroke, you can just hit the reset button, and that's also assigned to a key switch down here as well. Okay, now further down that column, we have tremolo. This is KSP scripted tremolo made with single samples of down and up strokes. I was quite skeptical of this at first. I thought it would sound really unnatural and somewhat mechanical, but I was very pleasantly surprised when Bo sent me the script to try out. So what you can do is you can turn this on, you can have the tremolo locked, so all notes are played with tremolo, or you can trigger it periodically from a key switch down here, so you can do, single pluck notes and then go into a couple tremolo notes, or whatever it is you like to do. So what we can do is just turn it on so you can hear it with the tremolo locked. And notice the speed is set to 115. I can control that, though, in real time from my controller keyboard. So I do on the Mac, Control-click, learn MIDI CC, and then I just move one of my sliders, and you can see I'm now controlling the tempo of the tremolo. So that could be used for expressive purposes. Also, I can control the volume with my mod wheel, and that can be set up whatever way you like on the settings page, which we hopefully will have time to get to. So here's a little bit of volume modulation with the mod wheel. And of course, you can control those two parameters independently. So if you're doing sequencing your DAW, you might do one pass with volume mod wheel changes, and then you might adjust the speed on the next pass. And so that way you have a lot of control over the expressiveness of the tremolo. Another thing that works quite well with the KSP tremolo is double stops. So if I just turn the mandolin tremolo on in locked mode, I'll just play in fifths. Of course, you could play in any interval you want to. So it may take a little practice in triggering the notes. It helps if you trigger the lower note just a few milliseconds before the higher note. But if you're sequencing, of course, you can adjust that later. Another tip on using the scripted tremolo is when you want a nice smooth release after the tremolo, is you hold down your sustain pedal, keep it down, and then release the note. For example, like this. Notice it had a nice long ringing effect at the end. So it doesn't give you that abrupt ending. Now I'll move on to the next column, string muting. You notice it says, there's a button that says muting off, so we can just turn it on, and of course you can do this with a key switch as well. So here's without muting, and with muting. And that uses a low pass filter. You can change the settings of that on the settings page though. So if I go down to settings, I'll talk about this in more detail later. We have mute amount. So for example, if I just want a lesser degree of muting versus a great deal of muting, and all the way down here is basically bypassing it. I guess not, it's still somewhat muted. Alright, back to the main page. And now we have a section that says attack/art. Art stands for articulation, and we have articulation buttons 1 and 2. And you can set these up on the settings page that I was previously on, make your own settings of the attack envelope. This is meant to give you just an option of a slightly softer attack, which might create the effect of a slur or a hammer-on and pull-off, as guitar players call them. This sequence will demonstrate that. So first you'll hear the sequence with no articulation settings, not using the articulation buttons. Okay, and now here's that same sequence, and watch the art buttons 1 and 2. So going up, it just uses articulation number 1. You'll notice some of the notes have a softer edge to them, and coming down, it's going to use articulation number 2, which has a slightly different setting. Okay, so that's there just to give you some variety in terms of phrasing. I don't know that mandolin players really use as much hammer-ons and pull-offs as, for example, guitar players do, but it's nice to have that just to change the attack a little bit. And below the 2 art buttons, we have a heading that says slide. These are slide half, the button says. These are half-step slides, sampled for every sampled note on the instrument, on each string chromatically. And these are assigned to this key switch here, G sharp in green. And it always slides into the note you're playing from a half step below. And you can change the speed of the slide depending on the piece of music. So this is up to 135%. Or you can slow it down quite a ways and still sounds pretty good. And these, of course, can be controlled, the speed of the slide, by your controller, just like we did before, doing control-click on the Mac and learn the MIDI CC that you want to control that speed with. So you can vary it throughout a piece of music. If you want to set it back to its default setting, it's Command-click on the Mac. On the PC, I believe it's Control-click. And finally, in the far right-hand column, we have effects. And these are just effect buttons that you can turn them on and off from the front panel. You can do much more detailed editing of the effects from the Effects tab. So let's get off the main page here on the Instrument tab, and we'll go to the Settings page. controlling the tremolo with your controller, you can change the CC assignment. You can change the amount here with this knob. So this is increasing it. If I turn the knob counterclockwise, then I can decrease the tremolo volume. This is in regards to the KSP tremolo. So if you prefer to have your mod wheel control the tremolo in a different way, you can set it according to your preferences here. This is the amount of the mute button on the front panel that we just talked about. The sustain pedal, this is kind of interesting. So if you want a little bit more of a sustain effect, just an illusion of the instrument ringing more, if you press down your sustain pedal, it's going to be too much the way a sustain pedal is normally set up. So this way you can control how much the sustain pedal is going to affect the sound. So for example, so that's with no sustain pedal, and if I press my sustain down, you can hear everything's ringing, but not quite as much as it normally would. And so you can decide how much the sustain pedal is going to be affected. Now, if you want to see the setting when you do this, you do need to press the sustain pedal down, and then you'll see the millisecond marking how much you're increasing it or decreasing it by, and then you can try it out. You know, this is a great deal. That's more the way a normal sustain pedal might work. So you have control over, it's really an illusion of resonance of the instrument. It's not really the instrument resonating, but it's there for you to use. And then the articulation settings we talked about. If you want to change the setting of articulation number one, first thing to do is click on this button and it says Art Locked. Now when you change your various settings, they'll be reflected in the knob value area. So if that is not clicked on, the Art Locked, when you turn this, you're not going to see anything. So you do need to have that engaged in order to reflect what is going on. And that's true for both articulation 1 and 2. Once you get some settings you like, you can save them as a preset. And we could either save a bank or save individual presets. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And now on the drop-down menu, I'm going to go to the key switch page. And on this page, you have the default assignments of the various key switches, all listed for you to refer to. But we also have some other variations to choose from. So variation 1, you can see the key switch is moved down here. Variation 2, and so on. So these are just offered if you find a layout that works better for you. You can choose between them, and there you can see the fret position changed from all the way up here on the top right of the keyboard down to the left side with the green and red key switches. So that's a very nice touch. And from there we can use the drop-down menu again and go to the About page. The About page is a very concise online manual for you that's built right into the instrument, so you can refer to things if you don't want to get out and read the PDF manual. Also, we do have context mouse hover over help as well. So if that's enabled on Kontakt, you just hold it over the button that you want to get information about, and it'll be shown to you at the bottom of Kontakt just by putting your mouse over a particular button. I won't show that to you here because I'm in more of the minimized Kontakt mode, but it's there for you to use. And so now very quickly just onto the Effects tab. We have EQ, chorus, delay, and space. And all of these settings can be saved in preset files of your own making. You can load just one setting, or you can load and save an entire bank. This is true for all the effects. When you go to the space button where it says space on off, you turn it on. We would be using all these various IRRs to choose from. If you prefer, instead of space, here you can use Kontakt's built-in algorithmic reverb and use your reverb that way as well. So now you're looking at the mandolin chop's contact instrument. A chop is a quick strummed chord on the mandolin. It's a signature sound that's used in bluegrass music when the mandolin's accompanying somebody else, sort of like background comping. And in this column we have the chord type. We have major, minor, dominant seventh chords, diminished chords, fully diminished seventh chords, and half diminished chords, or what some people call minor 7 flat 5s. And this is scripted in such a way that you hear a ghost note first, if you're in 4/4 time that is, a ghost note, and then you hear a chop. And this is done in 4 round robins. So every time you do it, you play the same key over and over again. For example, I want a G chord, I play it once, I'll get a ghost note. The second time I'll get a chop, and I can just keep playing that note. The ghost note is really used by mandolin players as a timing reference, but it's nice to have it there because it definitely gives it quite a bit more realism. So for example, here's a 1-4-5 chord progression, just playing it on the keyboard. Right? And that's kind of cool. You can just speed it up and slow it down, make that sound quite real. Or you can align it in your DAW sequencer and quantize it, whatever your needs might be. And of course in the chord column we have the various key switches, and you trigger those either in real time or in your sequencer. As the sequence plays, you can insert your key switches for the various chord qualities. So you have the single octave to choose the pitch of the chord, and then you use these key switches to trigger whether you want minor, major, diminished, dominant seventh, etc. In the next column it says Ghost Chop. We have a reset button. That's very helpful if you need to reset it. You're working on a sequence and you start the sequence and the chop and the ghost note are reversed. You can put in a key switch so it's always reset to whatever way you want it to be. Generally the ghost note is first and the chop follows. Here we have a lock button for chops. So if you just want to do a bunch of chops, here, let me switch to a minor chord. You can do that for whatever your purposes may be. Same thing is true on the ghost note, nothing but a ghost note. Okay, and here you can adjust the ghost note volume. Generally these will be very soft, but if for some reason that might be useful, it's there for you to do. Now the next column says meter. We're in 4/4 time. If you have a tune in 3/4 time, you can go to 3/4. It says first variation. And what this gives you is this. I'll just play a key repetitively. So as you can hear, it's giving you 2 ghost notes and a chop. We also have another variation, variation number 2. This will be ghost note and 2 chops, I believe. Right, good for waltzes. Below that, we have the speed of the chop. I'm going to change this back to 4/4, and it's at 100%. If you need a slower sounding chop, so typically when mandolin players play against slower songs, the speed of the chop is a bit slower. High energy, fast songs, it's going to be very quick. So here's what this sounds like with this slowed down, maybe for like a kind of a ballad. Right, it's got more of a laid back feel, and if I crank it up, it's got a nice snap to it. In this last column we have the same effects that we had in the previous mandolin instrument, so this is no different than the material you've seen before. So now what we're looking at is the mandolin sampled tremolo instrument. So this is not KSP scripted tremolo, this is sampled tremolo. Each string was sampled up to the full length of the string, the 12th fret on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string, and up to the 15th fret, I believe, on the 1st string. And it's got a different quality to it, of course. It's a bit darker, doesn't quite have as much punctuation as the KSP tremolo. Okay, and we have the same choices here. We can use the same fret position algorithm that we had in the other instrument, and you can impose a specific string. For example, if I just want to play up the fourth string only with the tremolo, right, that has a different quality than if I shift strings from the fourth to the third string fairly quickly. It's quite a bit brighter. So all the things from the previous instrument I've shown you apply to this instrument as well. You have a speed control, we have muting, and we have our usual arsenal of effects as well. I very much appreciate you taking the time to watch and listen to the demo. Best wishes to you from Boulder.